Welcome to the next Tao in a Minute. Okay, so we've worked on this time to having the core trust and respect and that deep connection, and we've worked on who we have to be, on being, playful and being present in the moment and letting the past go. But now you've noticed, if you've been doing this and you've been going along the whole time, some things have been coming up that have been creating a lot of either conflict within you or within the relationship or within the environment. I'm here to tell you that the next skill addresses this, and this is actually right on time. The next skill that we come to is probably the one that terrifies everyone the most, and the number one reason that people will not follow through and go on to the next level of a relationship. This part of a relationship is absolutely the critical make it or break it time. Once you have that core trust and respect and that rapport with one another, and you can be yourself and you can allow the other person to be themselves, and you're really working on daily intimacy and you're never withholding for the person, but there's one area that really becomes difficult because nothing tries you in a relationship except for how hard it is to be vulnerable. Vulnerability in most people's lives, as I've said in other segments, they believe to be vulnerable is to be weak. That analogy only bears truth if you're at war. If you're in a citadel or if you're in a castle and you have a vulnerability in the wall or somewhere else, then you have a weakness in your defense. Too many relationships are likened to war. Too many relationships are likened to setting up a defense, us against them. But in a relationship, if it's us against them, you're not actually in a relationship. You're in a conflict with that person. You're trying to work out life problems. You're trying to work out conundrums with parents, with early, relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, with society, with somebody that you're intimate, and nothing is going to doom you faster than this. Vulnerability in a relationship is not weakness. Vulnerability is openness. The only way you can become vulnerable is if you become committed to falling in love with the truth, falling in love with what is. If you're terrified that that person doesn't love you because if they knew, oh my God, that I liked to, speak unkindly to myself, if they knew that you thought of other people sexually, if they knew I didn't believe in God, if they knew I didn't like my kids, oh my God, they would never love me. So we try to hide and we try to excise these darknesses. Darkness means you're not putting the light of your attention there. That's all it means. But the reality of life is that those things that we say can't be true. That's not me. Well, yeah, it's you. But it's usually the language you're using to describe that. That's your real problem, not these things. When you won't look at it, you can't see it for what it is, and you can't work through it. So you hide it. You stuff it away. But feelings that are buried alive never die. And because of that, what happens is we put up walls. The walls that we're trying to protect aren't our heart. They're not trying to protect the soft part of ourselves. They're trying to protect our shame, our guilt. We're trying to protect those parts of ourselves that we don't want the other person to see. But it's interesting because in the paradox of trying to avoid it, not only do we end up creating it usually, but we also do something worse. We end up finding ourselves more ashamed that we're defending these parts that we don't even believe in. That we start defending egos. We want to change. We go to self-help seminars. We read these self-help books. We go to gurus. We go to all of these people because they're going to help us to be better. Well, if we want to be better, then that means that there's a dissatisfaction with that identity. There's a dissatisfaction with that part. But then we fight to the death to make sure nobody ever takes that part from us because it's ours. You end up defending an ego you don't even believe in. To become completely vulnerable, to become completely in love with the truth, we have to admit to ourselves, these are what I fear. Fear is always a lie. It has to be a lie. Fear is what if. Love is what is. Reality is what is. What if is this dark spot in your understanding where you go, well, I don't know. So, and then the mind fills in all the terrible things it could possibly be. This creates so much problems because unfortunately, the other person in the relationship, that other person isn't privy to this mess. But they do feel the effects of your behavior. They do feel the effects of your worry, your anxieties, of everything else. But if that person is the person that you decided, I want to be with this person through business, through love, through marriage, through having kids, but you're not going to give them that deeper part of yourself, then no matter what vow you say, I believe in my marriage vows. Well, I'm sorry, but you had no business making those vows. Those vows were corrupt from the start because the person making it didn't have the right or authority to make it. Because the person you are was not the person who made the vow. Because all that stuff that you don't like, that's part of you too. My master used to tell me a lot growing up as a kid. There's no dark side of the moon, just the side you can't see. This is true. There's no dark side of you. There's just the side you won't look at. Relationships are a place where we build that core trust and respect, where we have that heartfelt understanding, right? Each of these builds on the other so that we can come to this place where we can be loving, where we can be present, where we can be playful, where we can have this deep intimacy. So when we become vulnerable, in those moments of deep rapport and deep love, we can say, this is what I fear about myself. This is what I'm terrified. And the other person can say, that's not what I see. Or they may ask questions. What does that mean to you? And by the talking out of these very terrifying things, it's anticlimactic at best because most people go, wait, you mean it's not like that? The other person says, no, not to me. And you start to realize that all of these limiting beliefs, these beliefs are nothing more than bars in your prison, and the mind is the warden. And no matter how pretty you think your beliefs are, sometimes prison bars can have jewels on them. Relationships are the place that will either keep you in prison and sometimes solitary confinement, or they will set you free. But even if they take the bars away, sometimes people won't leave because they're just terrified. Relationships can be the place where we can be free to be who we are, to work through these things. There's not a soul on the planet who doesn't have these things. But we must become vulnerable. We must fall in love with the truth. And so the discipline for this skill is we must practice daily, never lying to ourselves. We must practice daily, accepting that what other people see is what they see. Whatever other people feel is what they feel. But the same is true in reverse. And what we see and what is isn't the same. Because if we don't have the language for reality, then we'll have to put all this reality in this little place of language we have. So we will mislabel things, we will misunderstand things, we will misperceive things. But walking through them and working through them, having the courage to come fully honest with ourselves is the only way out of those bars into the relationship that goes from here to here. Okay, as always, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, this is a very deep, very sensitive subject. You can always put it in the comment section. You can hit like or you can share it with other people. If you need more privacy, you can email me at lau@fortdragonschool.com. Okay, until next time, we'll see you next time on Tao in a Minute.